Hey everybody, this is Matt with onX, and application season is here. So I just want to take a second and maybe give a little refresher course here on some of the layers in onX Hunt that might be useful for you as you're researching your application this year and looking at different units that you want to apply for. So hopefully you've been using Hunt and Fool and your top rut to kind of narrow down the units you want to apply for. And then you're probably going to jump into Web Map or something like this and start researching the units and looking kind of like at the access, the terrain, and some of the other cool layers we have. So I'm just gonna do a quick refresher course, walk you through some of the layers here in Web Map that I find useful for application season and a little bit of reason why. So let's just jump in. So first I'm just gonna open up our layers. So I'm in Colorado here. I also have Montana and Wyoming on. I'm doing a little bit of research. And so you wanna make sure in your state layers that you have on your private lands, your public lands, and your hunting units. And if you're after a certain species, Colorado's pretty generic on their hunting units here. But if you're looking for bighorn sheep or mountain goat in Colorado, you'd want to toggle to those hunting units. And then, for example, Montana has a ton of different zones. So you want to make sure you're in the right one. Default is usually deer for each state. But if you need to toggle to antelope or something like that, you'll want to do that. So make sure you got your kind of base map set up here. And we'll toggle back out. And the first thing I'm going to go to, just kind of stack ranked here in alphabetical order, I'm going to go into the current conditions folder. A lot of useful stuff here for actually when you're hunting with precipitation, air quality, smoke forecast, active fires. So a lot of cool stuff you'll want to keep track of for later in the year. But the one that I would use in here is the drought data. Some states drought's going to be more of a problem than others. Antler growth is kind of susceptible. Some people say it doesn't matter much. Some say it does as long as they can get the water. But we know that overall drought is going to kind of lessen the quality of the habitat, right? And you typically might have a little bit less water. So, we're looking up here in Montana right now. The drought is, pretty extreme in northern Montana. So I know from personal experience from hunting up in some of this area that a lot of the stock tanks are dry. And so one thing to consider when there's drought is how is that going to move the animals around water sources? Are they going to have to move from one unit to another? Are you going to have to hunt a little bit differently? So something to think about when you're doing your applications, but also something to check back in the summer when you're doing your scouting and before you go hunting as well. So let's turn that one off so we can look at some of the other ones, and we'll go back. And in the next bucket, we have land and access. So in here, a whole bunch of cool stuff as well. Section, slope, really good for doing some research when you're really looking at units, getting that slope angle turned on. But when you're applying, one of the things to consider is wilderness areas. That's an effect in Wyoming specifically, if you can hunt there or not, with or without a guide. So you can see a lot of these units, the wilderness area basically encompasses all of the Forest Service. So if you're counting on hunting Forest Service, in that unit, you have to be outside the wilderness boundary if you're a non-resident. So big thing to make sure you're checking, because the draw odds might skew you towards some of these units to apply for in Wyoming, but you can't actually hunt a lot of the public land once you draw. The other thing it affects is just your travel plans. You can't use e-bikes or bikes in the wilderness. You can't use motors. So if a lot of your unit is wilderness, you're going to have to be hiking in, horseback, backpacking. And so that's a good thing to look at in your unit and see if that's the type of hunt you want to deal with. Okay, let's keep that on because I like just keeping that layer on. Now we'll go to roads and trails. So the trails are on by default. Let's just go down back to Colorado here. Find a cool unit. Okay, we got a random unit here. So we got our public on, our private on, Forest Service, private here. We've got some trailheads with our trails. One thing you might want to look at is the motorized roads and trails. So those will turn on in pink here, right? And so you'll want to look at what is the access like when I'm applying for this unit. And you can also click on each road section. It'll give you the open dates as well. So this is open from May 21st through November 22nd. So if you're on a late fourth season rifle hunt, you might not be able to drive some of these roads in Colorado. I'm not sure what the dates are in 2023, but something to consider. Same with archery. A lot of The roads close in September or October, so you'll want to make sure you have an access plan in that unit that you're applying for. So let's just keep those on as well. Okay, so we've got those roads and trails, and then the next one is under the trees, crop, and cover folder. A lot of really cool stuff in here, a lot of forest data that's useful for a whole bunch of different stuff. One of the big ones here is timber cuts. Oh, sweet, I see some pop up on the map. So these are the harvest activities or thinning activities that have happened in the last 10 to 15 years. So you'll see there's quite a bit of activity in this unit 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So that could be some really good regrowth areas in there. And next to that is the historic wildfire. So we don't have any in that unit. Okay, so let's scroll up and look for some wildfires. Okay, cool. We got some in Unit 24 here, and a lot of wilderness as well. So this was burned in 2018, this fire. And you can look here, get a little bit more information. Cabin Lake fire, almost 6,000 acres, and it was August of 2018. So that's going to be 5 years old. So that should have some good regrowth, and you'll have a lot of visibility. One thing to consider is you'll be able to glass these areas and see a lot, but there might be a lot of downfall in there. Dead trees falling over, so getting around in there can be a little tricky as well. And this one was in 2016. So make sure you take a look at the wildfire layer as well. Another cool one, little trick I have is I'll turn on the deciduous versus coniferous. It's just a good idea for glassing. And telling about later in the year, is there going to be leaves on the trees or not? And it's kind of hard to tell from the aerial, but I can come in here quickly and be like, okay, this forest is all coniferous, right? So it's going to have leaves and the pine needles on all year long, but there are these pockets of deciduous trees. So early in the year, these could be good food sources if they're aspen or oak or something like that for the deer. And as the leaves are falling, you'll get a little bit better increased visibility in these areas. So I really like finding these pockets. Sometimes they might have water in there as well. So it's really cool to like map out where these deciduous areas are, so you have a little bit of visibility ideas in there as well. That was kind of overwhelming, so we're just going to turn it off while we're doing some more scouting here. Okay, finally we'll jump into the wildlife categories, and then I got a couple little bonuses for you. So stay tuned till the end. Some new features. Okay, wildlife layers. So we'll turn this on. A whole bunch of cool stuff in here. The elk distribution map is really cool. Come in here, you can see elk distribution. You've got some wintering zones, some summer range. Colorado does a really good job of, they even have some of the migration routes mapped in here. Here's one here. So it kind of gives you an idea of which way the elk are migrating from the high to the low. And then if we zoom out, you can just kind of see the habitat range in Wyoming as well. So summer range. So that's a cool one to turn on. So we have the same for mule deer. And then we have some other layers here from the Boone and Crockett Club, which we're the exclusive mapping partner with Boone and Crockett. So the only place you can see these maps on a digital mapping platform here, but you can look at just the overall trophy trends historically, and you can go and choose whatever species you want. So let's just change to mule deer here, a little more relevant here for our application season. So you can see the heat map. Red is where the most entries have been, white is the fewest. So you can come in here, click, and see how many entries have been entered in Adams County, Idaho. So this is all-time records, but we thought it would be cool to see like what the trends are for the last 10 years as well. So we can turn that one off and just turn on mule deer for the last 10 years. And it gives you a little bit different picture on kind of the hot spots of where some more mature deer are being harvested and recorded. So that's another cool one to turn on as well. So that was a lot of information, a lot of layers. Like I said, dig around in here, use a little bit of my tips. There's a lot of information in here in all these layers. Okay, we have a new button here in WebMap for Elite Tools. So these are tools that you can use specifically if you're an Elite member. So we've talked a lot about draw odds. if you can't, if your odds are zero, you're not going to draw the tag. There's no use to apply, right? You got to find units that you can actually draw for to go hunting. So top rut, like super important. I'm in there every day, basically this time of year. Second is Terrain X. So this is a first of its kind tool built for hunters. And there's a couple things in here that are really unique to onX. And this is in beta. You can see we'll be adding new stuff throughout the next coming months. So as you jump in here, it might look a little different than it does now. This is just in beta release, just launched last week. So, okay, let's go ahead and try it out. I'll just run you through this really quick because we're gonna make a whole bunch of other videos about this. But really quickly, we open up another viewer here, fully 3D. Got some filters preset here, but you can change your filters by slope angle. So if you want flatter or steeper areas, the slope aspect, north facing might be good bedding for archery season for elk. You want south facing for spring bear, and then the elevation. You want to filter by different elevations as well. And then a really cool thing is view shed. So this is a tool where wherever you put it on the map, this is what you could see from sitting there. So this is a remote glassing tool. So if you want to sit on this knob, this tool will tell you what areas you can see on the map from there. So really good for pre-planning, picking out those glassing knobs you want to get to and knowing where you're at. So a lot more information and features coming into Terrain X and Viewshed, but that's a little sneak peek for you. So once again, application season is here. Be sure to get in and research your unit using onX Hunt. You're probably going to be picking out units using Top Rut, Hunting Fool to help you narrow down your research, and then you'll be jumping into Web Map here to kind of do your final scouting before you apply. So good luck in the applications, and we'll see you out there.